All right, we'll let folks come in here from our waiting room. And thanks everyone for joining us here today. This is kind of a round two trial here. Zoom had a little bit of a hiccup for us in April, so I was very thankful that Brian could come back here in May and give another shot at a very important topic here. Working closely with California Farm Bureau and with FELS, we see a lot of farmers that get into the minutia of what the H-2A program is, how complicated it can be to navigate it, and what we can do collectively to help them out. And that's really what we're going to be discussing today. Why FieldClock has joined with California Farm Bureau as a member benefits partner to really provide a solution to help folks navigate the murky waters here. So I'm really happy to invite on Brian Little from FELS, and we also have Ashley Reese here from FieldClock and our product manager, Brad Ledford. Before we get to the actual content, though, I just want to let everyone know that we are recording this. If, schedules are always tight, if you do need to leave for any reason, we are going to send the recording out. And we want this to be an interactive discussion. So feel free right down below there, the Q&A button within Zoom. Ask us questions, and we're happy to answer them during the session here today. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ashley.
Hi, everyone. I am Ashley, and just a little bit about me for context, because sometimes I like to use examples with my presentations. So I am from New Jersey. Please don't hold that against me. But prior to working for FieldClock, I was actually growing apples and peaches. It was a little bit of everything, right? So I had a really high season where I would bring in about 85 employees, but the rest of the year I only had a handful. However, it was really difficult for me in that position to be able to manage all of my office responsibilities because, as you very well know, rules and regulations are constantly changing. They are requiring more and more from us every year. One of the reasons why I really liked FieldClock is because, excuse my language, but it took the suck out of the suck, right? So we're able to give you information that you need and help you get to the end result, which is paying your people on time. The magic in FieldClock really is what can you get along the way by simply changing your process from pen and paper to digitizing that system. So what is FieldClock? FieldClock is an app-based timekeeping solution that was created by farmers for farmers. And before I get into the next slides, I really just want to ask you some questions for you to think about because all of our farms are unique in their own ways. So I just want to get you in the mindset of kind of what we're talking about and what your processes are on your farm. So what does time and attendance mean for your farm? How do you have your employees clock in? How are they communicating they're there? How are they communicating their hours to you? Do they use paper time cards? Do they text you? Do they use a machine in the shop that sometimes doesn't connect to your internet? How often are you missing information or need to chase down your employees when it's time to run payroll? If so, do you find yourself guessing or guesstimating their hours or inflating them just to get payroll done on time? Where do your people start their day? Do they start in one location? Do they start while they're out in the field? Do you have good cell reception? All of those things. How do you actually know that your employees are there if they're using pen and paper? And if you are using a system, does it align well with your specific needs? Do you have a contact with that system that is ready and able to answer your questions? Do they understand what a farm is, what being a 943 tax filer is? Do you have H-2A employees? Are you easily able to capture their non-productive time? Do you struggle with their pay stubs and find it difficult or time-consuming to generate those forms? And then I guess ultimately, what do you like about how you're currently handling these things and what ultimately would you like to get out of it if you were to change? I'm just presenting these questions to you because, again, as we go through these next steps, I want you to picture your farm and how a system like this could potentially help. So when I mean cost of pen and paper or your time cards, The cost of pen and paper really is compounding. So for those of you who have timesheets, their employees are writing them down. That information, by not digitizing that process right away, there's a lot of room for error. So whether the employee doesn't fill out their time card properly and you overinflate their hours, multiply that by how many employees you have. Now you have this information on a timesheet or on an Excel spreadsheet, and now you need to plug it in somewhere. So again, manual entry, time consuming, accuracy. From here, you have to use this information that you're manually entering or guesstimating to actually pay your people. You use that same information to report your taxes for any H-2A audits or just audits in general. And if you make a mistake at the very beginning, that's going to be compounding in the way that it's inflated, but also with, any violations or regulations. A simple mistake on a time card could be very costly for you. More than that, with this information that you're capturing in an Excel spreadsheet, how easy is it for you to make decisions week to week, month to month, and at the end of the year? Are you able to easily identify how much money you've spent in labor at one location or one crop? Are you able then to make better decisions for your business or maximize your labor a little bit better? Well, that is ultimately why FieldClock was created and why we're here. FieldClock was created by farmers for farmers, and I mean that in a number of ways. So historically, FieldClock started with a group of 3 people, one of them being Ryan and his wife. We're trying to find a really simple way to capture piecework on their cherry orchard. And they were headed out onto the orchard at 4:30 in the morning, clocking their people in, and then they were capturing little pieces of paper for their piecework. That was really time consuming, inaccurate, and there was the need for a better way. So that's how FieldClock got started. We created a system to solve that problem. Along the way, though, we have really become a resource for farms of all shapes and sizes. So a lot of times when you think of a farm or a digitized system like this, you're thinking of a really large operation, typically one that you would compare your numbers to or create your benchmarks off of. And a lot of times these systems are incredibly expensive, but FieldClock wants to be the resource. We want to be there for farmers by giving all farms of all shapes and sizes a really easy way to capture time and attendance, to be able to create their own benchmarks and effectively make better business decisions. So FieldClock was created for farms of all shapes and sizes. We have made our platform intuitive and easy to use because we know that many of us are not familiar with tech, or there may be some language barriers. FieldClock kept that in mind by offering an app-based system that's available in English and Spanish. We have American-based support staff that's bilingual. We want to be able to work with you and your team because we know that our system is only going to be as successful as the people using it, and we're here to help and support them. Now, what is FieldClock? Why does this matter? What I like about FieldClock, again, it's a timekeeping system. It's app-based. And unlike other systems out there, we don't have separate modules. It's not piecemeal. Really, what we do is we give you the entire platform, and the magic is understanding your unique operation and finding out which combination of tools work best for you to, again, make your employees' life easier, to make your life easier. A little bit more about these parts and pieces. Our mobile app. Our mobile app can be used in several ways. So it can be used by a farmer who is working alongside their employees. It helps you identify where your employees are, where they're working. You can see all of your locations, all of your tasks happening in real time. It also helps eliminate their pen and paper, or their pad of paper that they're throwing in their truck and forgetting some details, because they're able to record details in their sprays or in their notes, things like that. Our field app can be used by crew bosses and supervisors to clock employees in and out. It can be used to record production. It can also be used by employees that you have that maybe work independently, but you'd like to still see what they're accomplishing throughout the day, and just have that transparency between you. Again, even if you're a farmer that works off farm, it's something that you can use this for as well. A kiosk is our standalone app. It's where you can have your employees come to one location where they can simply clock in and clock out. It's meant for packing facilities. If your people come to one location in the morning, just a really quick way to get people in and out. The admin site is where we put all of those pieces together. It's where you pay your employees. It's where you run reports and ultimately generate the information that you need to make those decisions. The last piece is our proprietary employee portal. It allows full transparency so that your employees can actually see their hours in real time. They can see their production in real time. This tool was meant for your employees to be able to see their hours, see their production, and ultimately to be able to tell you if there are any changes that need to be made prior to you running payroll. All right. Now that we have explained FieldClock and really talked about pen and paper, what does this mean for you to apply a system like that? How does it streamline your operation? What are the changes that we make? So by digitizing this process, by having your employees clock themselves in, or having your crew bosses clock your employees in, you're going to have real-time information. So you're going to know where your employees are. Therefore, you're going to have block level reporting. And what I mean by that is you'll know exactly how much you're spending in labor at each of your locations or fields. With this information, the accuracy where you get to simply make any edits and review their time rather than having to do those difficult calculations like minimum wage adjustments, piece rate break pay, things like that. We do all of that for you so that this way their pay is accurate. And therefore, all of the information that flows afterwards for taxes and compliance, there's accuracy in that information. Additionally, now, instead of using these Excel spreadsheets, because this information is available in real time, now you can see how much have I spent in labor so far on this project, or how far along have we gotten in pruning or thinning, whatever it is. Additionally, you can make changes day by day in real time. It also real-time reporting too. What I like about this is now you're giving your staff the ability to have reports come directly to them, and we'll talk on that a little bit later. But it's a way to create a new culture within your operation and your supervisors, possibly to have these reports that helps them make better business decisions as well. Ultimately, the goal here is transparency and to just streamline your operation. So now FieldClock handles timekeeping, and what we do is we work with payroll systems, over 24 payroll systems. We create an export file that you can upload into your existing system. However, we do know that many farms struggle with piecework or working with a payroll system that understands that they're a 943 tax filer. So what we've done is we've partnered with ADP. We now have FieldClock payroll powered by ADP right in one place. It's just something that if this works for you and you want it, it's available. What this connection and what this partnership does is it gives you one place to go to for all of your payroll needs. So instead of calling some large company that doesn't know who you are, that takes forever to give you an answer, or maybe a different answer every time you call, you're going to be working with FieldClock. We know who exactly you are. We understand your operation. And if we don't know the answer, we have a direct source of way to get that answer and report right back to you. It's like working with your neighbor again, someone who knows you, someone who understands you, all in one place. Again, to be very clear, you either work with your own payroll system or ours, whatever you'd like, but the option is now there, especially for smaller farms. All right, I talked on this a little bit more, but calculating the true cost of labor, real-time reporting. What is it that you're able to do with the information so far? Are you waiting until the end of the year to make decisions? What would you do if you had access to this right now? What would imagine also, and I'm sure Brian will elaborate on this too, but imagine Wage and Hour comes out to your location to do a spot check. We know that they're looking for your labor hours, your earnings records, or your labor records, and then how are you reporting that to your employees? What records are they getting? You are going to be able to pull that information quickly. You have someone come to the farm. The goal is to be able to give them the information that you need right away and get them off the farm as quickly as possible. I don't know if any of you have personally gone through an audit of any form. It's really difficult, and a lot of the times you over talk or give them too much information because you're busy going through a bin box looking for a time card that your fingers crossed is there. Now with FieldClock, you have this information directly in front of you and you can print it out. You can share it with the person that's there or simply just pull it up on your screen. So the transparency is there. And again, with that real-time data, you have the information you need to make decisions day by day. Now, imagine you've been working with FieldClock for a year. What does it look like next year when you go to sign a new petition or hire new employees? You're now able to also identify maybe really standout employees or weaker ones that maybe you don't want to come back. The cost of labor could not be any higher, and with real-time information, FieldClock really allows you to make those effective decisions when it comes to your business, when it comes to maximizing your existing labor force. Now, I do like this quote from Blaine Smith. I've gotten to know him a little bit, and this hits home for me, primarily because of how much time I spent with my kids. Now, when I was in season, I would get out on the farm at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I oftentimes wouldn't come back until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. It really just depends on how much paperwork I had. But for me, a system like this, reducing the amount of time it takes me to run payroll, to do those difficult calculations, means more time for my kids, more time to be out in the field, more time to be where I need to be, which is on the farm. So this really speaks to me, and I hope it speaks to you as well. Oh, right. So I am a huge fan of Farm Bureau. I know everyone's going to want my autograph, but I was actually the women's leadership state chair for a while. But I really love Farm Bureau, and I'm very proud to say that FieldClock is now a member benefit for 19 states. We also are available, or we're also working with 27 states as well and constantly growing. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, like I was saying in the beginning, FieldClock works with farms of all shapes and sizes. It doesn't matter whether you are a cattle rancher or you are growing tomatoes or melons or grapes. It doesn't matter. FieldClock tailors the experience to you and your farm and your unique needs. Again, it doesn't matter, your farm is not too big, it is not too small. We have a system and pricing available that will certainly make sense to help maximize your efforts. And I'm very excited for our discount as well. So as a California Farm Bureau member, you'll actually get $10 off your monthly bill. And to give you some context, our family plan, which is for about 10 employees a month, is $50 a month to be able to do all of this. So now take $10 off that. That's a significant savings. All right, I hand it off to Brian.
Thanks, Ashley. I appreciate that. You guys have talked a lot about, particularly about the H-2A program and how useful FieldClock can be for people who are using the H-2A program. But it's not just important for that too. You guys talked about rest period calculations and things like that. And that's equally important for non-H2A employers in California as for H2A employers. And the Private Attorneys General Act is just continuing to be a crushing burden on California agricultural employers, California employers generally. I think Ashley mentioned a minute ago, talked about some of the reports in real time you can generate out of FieldClock. And it's hard to underestimate how useful that's going to be when somebody from the Labor Commissioner's office comes rolling up your driveway in their government issued Prius and starts looking through your payroll records. But being able to pull that stuff out in real time and being able to show it correctly, be able to compare what you're showing for your payroll records, what you're showing for your employee paycheck stubs, and then it's all accurate and it all jibes with each other is going to be really important. There's a good chance if you get caught in a PAGA lawsuit like this, you're probably going to have to hire an attorney. There's really no way around that. But your attorney is going to love you a lot more if you have those kind of records, because it's going to make it a lot easier for that attorney to be able to defend you. So we're really excited at California Farm Bureau and at Farm Employers Labor Service to be able to partner with FieldClock. I think what they do is really just a wonderful system. And my goodness, for $40 a month, I don't know how you can buy, other than maybe subscribing to my Farm Employers Labor Service newsletter. I can't think of a way you can buy more peace of mind for less money than being able to do something like this. Because, right now, cherry harvest is going hot and heavy down in Lodi. And I imagine that there are probably people out there at 4 o'clock in the morning with bins and with pit tags and with all that stuff, trying to keep up with all that paperwork. So and that's only going to get to be more of that as we get into the season this year here in California. So just we are very excited to have the opportunity to be able to work with FieldClock. I think it's a great system, and for all of the compliance challenges that we have in California, probably more than any place else in the United States, if I had to guess. I really hope that everybody who's watching will give FieldClock a good solid look and try to figure out whether it's something they can integrate into what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and it really comes down to, Brian, a lot of what we're talking about today is after the fact, shielding yourself and proving that you're doing the right thing after the fact. But one of the powerful things with FieldClock too is being proactive and preventing these things before they even happen, making sure that your employees have all the transparency they need so that there isn't an issue that we have to go and hire a lawyer for and try to dig up some of these old records for them.
One of the things I forgot to mention is we did do some PAGA reform last summer in our legislature. The jury's still out on how effective that's going to be. And I've talked to a number of growers who are still getting letters from those law firms on Century Boulevard in LA County, basically saying, well, you have a $100,000 problem, but we can probably make it go away for 50. But that also created an opportunity. That reform we did last summer created opportunities for employers to be able to self-audit and correct problems. And that gives you a substantial discount, like a 90% discount on your PAGA penalties if you've done that. And I think it's obvious that FieldClock is going to facilitate you being able to effectively do that and be able to show that you did your due diligence. You perhaps got into your payroll records, found some problems, corrected those problems, made them right with your employees, and to be able to show how you did that. And I think that's going to be incredibly valuable to people.
Absolutely.
Did you want me to go on this one too?
Sure. Yeah, please.
I'm sorry. We didn't do a count on how many slides we were doing, but yeah, you can't. So there's my predecessor in this job. I've been here 16 years. A lot of you might have known George Daniels when he was in this chair, and he used to be fond of using a slide in his PowerPoint presentations that was a picture of toilet paper, a roll of toilet paper, and the caption was, "The job isn't over till the paperwork's done." And that is more true in California than it's ever been. I always tell people that you can violate the labor code 6 times before your coffee gets cold in the morning. And having good paperwork is just going to make your life a lot easier. If you have to work with an attorney to try to work out a problem, it can make that a lot easier too. And it's really important to be able to show that people are taking their breaks when they're supposed to be taking them. If they're getting their meal periods before the beginning of the 5th hour of the day, you'd be amazed how many times that gets missed. And is payroll simply being calculated accurately? Do your timesheets jibe with your paycheck stubs? Do they jibe with all of your other records? A lot of times it's really easy with paper records to be able to make a mistake. And the beauty about something like this system here is that it's going to catch those mistakes before they start to cost you money. It also brings transparency into everything that you're trying to do because you have the ability to be able to call up those records at the touch of a button, and allows you to be able to customize everything you're doing depending on what the unique demands are going to be of California law versus Washington State versus Oregon versus the other states up and down the West Coast that seem to be competing with each other to see who can make life more difficult for employers this year.
Absolutely. We touched a little bit on proactivity, and we've taken some steps this year, and I wanted to bring Brad in here to discuss a couple of the additional tools that we have in FieldClock, starting with, we know that we work with many different businesses, and their data is their own, and we want to make that accessible to them so that they can slice and dice the data and provide as many reports as possible. So, Brad, I want you to touch on a little bit the custom report library that we rolled out a little bit ago.
Sure. So yeah, we really value or rather we respect the role we have with our customers' data. We don't see it as sort of an asset that we hold internally. It's more that we're just a steward of the activity that's happening in the FieldClock system. And as part of that, we really try to give you control over how you want to access that data. So FieldClock is kind of an opinionated view of the data that's coming in from various clock in, clock out activity, piecework activity. But we want to provide a flexible system of getting that data out however you see fit. So the first solution that we have, which is kind of started from the outset, is that we have a very robust API, which is just it stands for application programming interface, and it's basically one of the more important ways that systems can talk to each other, whether that's your accounting system, or maybe you have a sophisticated reporting or business intelligence solution. You can get at FieldClock data through that API at any time. So given that, we sort of needed a middle ground that, we have the opinionated views of data within the app, within the admin area. Then we have the API, which really is up to you to decide. And so the custom report library is kind of a middle ground that says, we don't want you to have to know how to program. You're probably not going to have a development team for a lot of our customers. So how could you design a report or a view of the data using simple drag and drop kind of selection? And that's what the new report library is. Yeah. And so here's an example of what we've built and are going to continue to build is a series of both what we call system reports, and then of course reports that you build yourself. And so the system reports are going to show up in the system from the day you sign up. As you add data elements like employees, locations, ranches, blocks, things like this, these system reports just sort of start showing up, and they start being meaningful as time is logged against those jobs. And so the beautiful part about that is that you don't have to do anything. There's value in this report library from day one. But then from that point on, you can also develop your own reports. And so again, this is very much meant to be something that anybody can do. It's not technical. But once you have, maybe a report of costs that are coming in by block, for instance, if you go to the next slide, you'll be able to, for instance, just schedule that to show up daily. Maybe this is an example of a report showing up in my inbox every night that shows me the costs that are happening over time. And so why is this important? Well, we want to automate as much of the important data that you can get out of the FieldClock system. We have learned that it's nice to have tools in the system itself to go and kind of, ad hoc look things up, but it's much more meaningful and easy to have for instance, an overtime exception report show up in your inbox every day, and maybe only when it's got actual exceptions that are important to see. So for instance, in that send report when empty toggle on the bottom of that screen, you can see if you toggle that, we won't even send the report unless there's rows in the data. So it's becoming a more and more valuable component of our overall reporting solution. But we're getting a ton of great feedback, and it's an important piece of what we think is a meaningful addition to the system moving forward. And I don't think we have any slides talking about the design of it, but if anyone wants to reach out and see a demo or anything, we can certainly arrange that. And then kind of in another late breaking enhancement that we just rolled out, we have several different reports throughout the system that again are kind of meant to provide as simple and effective view of the data as we can, often over maybe a 2-week or a month-long period, or maybe last 24 hours, depending on the data. And then all of this is sort of meant to help you audit the activity happening in your FieldClock system. You know, what's going on at the block level, what's happening, you know, what's happening in my cherries, what's happening over here on this ranch. But then all of that kind of leads up to what we really want to have is a very accurate payroll process. We want to make sure that time is captured and accounted for and documented with a high level of fidelity and is very audit ready. And we identified a gap a couple months ago where the wage statement or payroll line item process was lacking some detail, specifically around compliance with some of these regulations from the Department of Labor, and then just generally having more visibility. And so what we've released in the last couple of weeks is this new, what we call a gross wage statement. And you'll see that it's really just meant to provide kind of a companion with the employee's paycheck or pay stub. And this is important because and I kind of answered one of the questions that came up around payroll systems. We integrate with 25 plus payroll systems. And the reality is that we cannot always communicate what is effectively a compliant level of detail to every pay stub. That might include piece activity that happened at a particular location for a particular employee. And how is that communicated onto the pay stub? Well, not every system can be given that information to print out on the pay stub. So we felt it was important to have effectively an 8.5 by 11 printable time and piecework summary that can be either logically stapled to that pay stub or actually physically printed and stapled for that auditable kind of paper trail of activity. So if we jump to the next slide, there's just a couple of details to call out. You know, there's some specific language around communicating an employee's information and pay period information. So this is just kind of a highlight of some of that information. We've done a lot of work to make sure that FieldClock is as secure as a system as you're going to find. You know, banking level security throughout the system. And so we do store social security information on the employee record if you're integrated into onboarding systems like Harvest. We never show the full SSN, but we have it here on this pay stub as it's kind of a compliance requirement to be on this sheet. And just as a sidebar, we've recently achieved what's called SOC 2 compliance. That is kind of a generally recognized standard for security and privacy controls. So we've been audited by a third party that sort of attests to our commitment to this privacy of this data. So just wanted to kind of call that out as something that we're recently very proud that we've achieved. And then, yeah, on the next slide, you'll see that we're just looking to, again, communicate some of these key pieces of information that are typically missing from your standard sort of ADP pay stub. So an example is the hours offered on the job, for instance, right? So this is part of some of the compliance things that you might need to do for your 3/4 guarantee with H-2A employees. So what were the hours offered? What were the hours worked? Down to the level of the employee and the day of the job. Piece rates and quantities earned on the right-hand side. So individual line items, again, by job, by location, and date is an important piece of this new report. And yeah, again, mentioned the task and location. And then below that line item detail, we also added a call out of any minimum wage adjustments that might have been made. So if you have picking happening, for instance, and you need to meet a state-based minimum wage, typically, I think in California, we're up to 1667, or no, we're actually, maybe I'm thinking of Washington, but I think we're higher now. But the system will automatically make that adjustment. And we do that in, again, a very auditable way. We don't just kind of round up or anything without an ability to look back and see why was that rate set to that amount. No, we let the activity be what it is. The hours are what they are. The piecework is what it is. And the payout was not sufficient to meet minimum wage. So we add an adjustment line item, and that's called out in this report as well. So it's an important sort of window in how we think about everything relating to the correct pay stub or payout to employees. We're always looking to back out of that amount. Here's all the line items that led to that value. And we think that's kind of the best approach to, auditability, traceability back to the activity that led into those pay stubs. And if there's any problems that need to be adjusted later on, just more evidence of what changes you need to make. And then finally, we make it very clear that this is a gross earnings statement. We don't pull in deductions from the payroll system into this wage statement. So that's an important call out. A lot of the regulations talk about, the need of having various sections and bits of information on the employee's pay stub, including deductions. We don't have that because we sort of want to let the payroll system calculate all those deductions, right? That's what those systems are for. That's their bread and butter. We want to give those systems the calculated rates and hour values and the piecework, and let the deductions be made over there. So this is kind of a compromise between, having the full information communicated to these payroll systems and having 25 plus implementations of the perfect pay stub versus having a very consistently useful wage statement in FieldClock paired up with the final pay stub.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, we're excited about that one.
You can't overestimate, by the way, how important it is to have this information at your fingertips when you're trying to do compliant paycheck stubs under California law. The provision of the California Labor Code that dictates all the stuff you have to disclose in paycheck stubs is kind of remarkably long and specific and detailed. And being able to access information like this to be able to make sure you're in compliance with that is a really useful detail with this system.
Absolutely. I appreciate all the insight you guys provided here. I wanted to call out a couple. I know Brad mentioned our Q&A, and he was in there diligently answering questions. For those of you that weren't in the panel there, I just wanted to call out a few of them vocally. Taylor was asking if the reports that we were showing, are we able to put that information into QuickBooks payroll services? And yeah, we actually integrate with QuickBooks. We integrate with, as Brad indicated before, over 24 other payroll systems. So we're not here to try to change what it is that you do already operationally with the different pieces of software that you use. We're just trying to complement them as best we can by really providing that level of transparency and data into your labor tracking. We have one from James, and James says, we integrate a lot of crop, cost center, job code, and equipment accounting in the payroll process. They use Famous, which we definitely integrate with. Is that level of detail incorporated? And Brad, I'll actually let you had a pretty good answer to that.
Yeah, I think this is something that gets glossed over pretty quickly in a lot of our demos, and because there's not always time to discuss it. But our approach to payroll integration is what is at the level of what we call a payroll entity. And what we've learned is that most operations pay their employees probably on the whole, in one payroll system, and that's a simple implementation. But a lot of our customers have multiple entities and multiple payroll systems or groups that use different policies and things. And so we've separated those policy and configurations across something we call payroll entities. And every single element in the FieldClock system has a payroll code that can be associated with it. So if you have a ranch called, Silverstone Ranch with blocks 1, 2, and 3 in your payroll system, and those blocks are associated with the codes, SS1, SS2, and SS3, you would just put those on the block level inside FieldClock as those payroll codes. And when the time and piecework is sent from FieldClock to your payroll system, we'll ship those payroll codes right along with those line items. And so automatically you have the fidelity of somebody down at the field level clocking in and out, automatically assigning payroll codes to every single hour that is logged. And they don't have to do it. They don't have to know that that's the payroll code. They don't need to select it. It's just by virtue of the job configuration. So it's a hard thing to talk about because I'm actually quite proud of how we do it. I think it's unique in the industry. So yeah, it's something to ask us more about, and maybe we can help you think about how you would model payroll integration in FieldClock with Famous in particular.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I have another one here from Lori, and Ashley, I'll put this one to you because I know that you've mentioned this in other demos, but when we were talking about that real-time data and tracking labor to the second, when they clock in, when they clock out, Lori was asking, is this going to help with rounding issues that you see a lot on farms with pen and paper?
Yes, it certainly will help with rounding issues. The follow-up question that I would have for you, Lori, too, is what payroll system are you using? We found that some are just better than others when it comes to that rounding and how many ultimately decimal places they will take when it comes to a file export. But yes, it will certainly help with rounding issues. And Brad, if you wanted to elaborate on that, I don't know if you had any additional information.
No, I mean, it's a pretty simple approach. We've tended to suggest a 15-minute rounding policy kind of.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not decimal place rounding, please excuse me.
No, that's okay. I think that's what we're talking about is kind of the need to round to the nearest quarter hour, up or down based on, whether an employee's kind of 7 or 8 minutes. I believe that 7/8 policy is what it's commonly referred to, but I might be mixing my labels. But you can choose not to do any rounding, or you can choose to have FieldClock just automatically do that quarter rounding.
Excellent. And James is saying, at the risk of insulting our men, a supervisor will need to review their entries for crop accounting accuracy. In fact, he insists upon it, and if only to make sure that we're not getting sandbagged. So can he presume there's a mechanism for review and, if necessary, correction of employee entries?
Definitely. There is, again, using kind of the standard reports, we have I would say a typical weekly cadence is a pretty popular one where you're sort of going over the time entries ahead of payroll and just looking for outliers. And then naturally you can adjust any time entries as an admin, if the user has the permission um, to any particular clock in, clock out time. I mean, we don't want to be the only system that can edit those time entries. Like, you are essentially in control of the data entirely. So yes, you can edit to your heart's content within the bounds of whoever you want to put in that admin role.
Excellent. Taylor is asking, is the kiosk its own system, or is it an app that he would, for instance, download to an iPad placed in the employee break room? Ashley, I'll put that one to you because I know you get that question a lot in your demos.
Absolutely. So we have two apps, the mobile app and the kiosk app. They just function a little bit differently. So you would download the kiosk app on your iPad and put that in your break room. So absolutely.
Yeah, we have clients that use the kiosk app in many different applications, whether it's office, break room. We have pack houses, cold storage houses. However you need to use FieldClock, we have a solution that can fit in your business.
Yeah, we even have some customers that'll use it at different stations throughout their packing facilities, so that when I move from one location to the other, I just scan and go, and you can watch my movements that way as well. There's so many ways to interact with the system. The magic is just finding a way that works best for you and your team.
I'm going to take the
key
easiest
thing
question.
there, though,
Oh,
to remember
go for it, Brad.
is, sorry, the key thing to remember is that all of the kind of the four tiles that we showed earlier about the kiosk and the app and the admin side and the employee portal, those are all hitting the same backend, the same sort of ledger of activity happening in your time tracking system. And the mobile and kiosk applications are offline compatible, meaning that if they drop an internet connection temporarily, the local activity that happens on that device is synced up later when an internet connection is restored. Again, that's, kind of table stakes with our industry, right? You're not always going to be on a cell network. You're going to be jumping from field to field. But even in a pack house scenario, you might have Wi-Fi flakiness from time to time. And so it's very important that these devices can capture time and then sync when they get a signal. So
Absolutely. So this last question, definitely the easiest one. I can take that. Dee said that she came in late, not a problem at all. We understand everybody's busy on their own schedule, and asking if they can get a copy of this. So yes, we are recording this. We are going to send a copy to Brian. Brian, you can happily put that into a future newsletter. We're going to put it up on our website as well for anyone and everyone to review on their own schedule. But I do want to, again, thank all of you for coming in and spending a little bit of time with us as we roll out what we feel is one of the best solutions out there for labor tracking and wrangling in some of the minutia of all of the different regulations that you see across California. And I put up some contact info for Ashley here. So if you have any additional questions, if you have some outlying thing that you do in your business that maybe you feel we didn't cover, we're always happy to talk shop and just learn a little bit more about your particular operation and how it is we feel FieldClock can help. So feel free and reach out to Ashley there. And I wanted to thank Brian as well. Brian, we're always welcome to talk with our friends at FELS, and being my home state here of California, I'm just glad that we have a resource like you available to our customers, because there's a lot that they really have to go through, and there's a lot of changes that come in day to day, week to week, month to month, and having a resource like FELS at the ready is something that we definitely appreciate.
Well, you guys have put so much time into getting this system put together that I think it's worth talking about it with our members and our FELS newsletter subscribers and clients every chance we get.
Well, we'll certainly look forward to doing it again. And thank you all, everyone, for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you again on the next one.
Thank you, everyone.
thanks.
Yeah.